and welcome to the Ladies Best Life podcast. Today I have an incredible guest on the show, and this legend I actually met next to the pool in Bali, and I don't even know how we started chatting, but something came up. We started talking. I was like, oh my goodness, like this girl is one, an absolute legend, but two, really knows her shit when it comes to business, and three, I knew I wanted to spend time with her. So Grace, welcome to the Ladies Best Life podcast. It is so good to have you here.
Hiya, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here.
You are very welcome.
Yeah, just a quick intro to me then. Firstly, it was absolutely great to meet you. One of the things that I love about Bali is that you can just be where we were, doing the same thing, sitting around the pool, and just meet people that are doing a similar thing to you. And there's so much that you have in common. So I love that. And the fact that we've kept in touch as well now that you're at home as well. So that's awesome. And yeah, a quick intro to me. So I'm Grace Nicholls. I am a career coach and HR consultant. I've been coaching for the last 10 years in corporates mainly. And then I started my business at the start of this year, which is super exciting. So it's been a crazy busy year for me so far.
Love that. That's incredible. And the stories that you've told me about, like how you're helping women, is what really kind of like pulled me into you. So can you like help us a little bit more to understand like what you do in regards to a career coach?
Yeah, so I suppose it's good to start with me, I guess, and a little bit about my background to tell you kind of how I got into what I'm doing now. So, as I say, I worked in corporates for around 8 years. Always thought that the kind of life that I wanted and my version of success was having, the car, wearing the blazer, the heels, that kind of power dressing, all of that sort of stuff. And I think I gradually realized that actually, as I actually got some of these things and achieved some of these things, that wasn't what my version of success was anymore. And I went through quite a difficult time where I was getting migraines for kind of 7 days, like to 2 weeks, sometimes at a time. I was really thrown into the deep end with a lot of the work that I was doing at quite a young age, which was great for experience, but not so great for my mental health. So yeah, I suppose I did that for quite some time, and then realized that actually that kind of life wasn't for me. I wasn't looking after myself properly, but I always knew that I was super ambitious and I really wanted to excel in my own career. But I suppose I was struggling to understand what my priorities were and how I could have that work-life balance, I suppose, and really look after myself physically and mentally, as well as being super ambitious and really driven. So that's kind of where I decided that actually it was time for me to start my own business. And I guess knowing that a lot of my friends, a lot of people around me were going through a similar thing, they were feeling really stuck in their jobs. They, were just kind of going through the same thing every single day, almost on autopilot, and just felt really trapped and like they didn't know how to have that balance in their life, feeling guilty, if they weren't putting their and keeping their foot on the gas with work and constantly progressing upwards within a corporate organization, but kind of wanting it all, I suppose. So yeah, my passion is really supporting women who are feeling really stuck, feeling uninspired. I think that's one thing to kind of really call out, and undervalued, because a lot of women do feel really undervalued in their roles, and they might be working in a role that is, two promotions higher than them, and they're not getting paid the right amount for it. They haven't got the job title that reflects the work that they're doing. So yeah, my passion is helping those people to excel in their career, whatever that is, whether that's in a corporate, or whether it's in a smaller organization, whether it's to transition to have their own business. But then, as I say, also including that more kind of holistic side as well. So looking at how they can keep themselves really fit and healthy, both physically and mentally at the same time.
I love that. And that really, really rings true with me. So
Yeah.
probably what year, where are we now? 23. So probably all of last year. I went, well, probably from about April 21 until about the beginning of this year, actually. I was
Yeah.
in this serious boss bitch mode. And it was like, it really didn't help that I was part of really masculine mentorship groups. So it was like the kind of terminology they would use, which literally makes me cringe now, is like fuck hard. If you're not growing, you're dying. Like it was horrendous. I know. But I just got on this, like, I was like, yeah, that's what I want. You know, I got myself a really nice car. Me and my ex, we had like a massive 4-bed house, which we didn't need. You know, at the time we didn't think we wanted children. And so, you know, when you're on this, like, this pathway, and I all of a sudden had a wake-up call, a bit like what you did. And I was like, shit, like, I need to get off this bus right now.
Yeah. And do you know what? All of that resonates, but I suppose the key moments for me. So one time I was, I was quite new into my career. I'd just been promoted into this role. It was a really big role. And also just kind of randomly, I was learning to speak Mandarin because the business had just gone into China. So I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity to use this skill. And I'd always wanted to work abroad. So I was like, right, I'm going to be really brave. I'm going to push myself out of my comfort zone. I'm going to speak to my HR director because he'd set up part of the business in China. And I'm going to talk about how I could potentially put myself in a position to be able to go to China, right? So I thought, this is really great. And I was so nervous. And I contacted him and he said, no problem, like, let's have the meeting. And then the tests started to come in. It was like the meeting was meant to be at 1, and then all of a sudden it's been pushed to 6:30 in the evening. So it's like, are you going to stay that late? Have you got what it takes? Do you want this enough to stay late? And little things like that started to happen. So, I was really ambitious, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to stay here anyway. Had the meeting, and I got absolutely grilled. And one of the things that he said to me was, he said lots of really nice things. I think you're really skilled. I think you're all of these things. I think you're going to be brilliant. He said, but I'll tell you what, you won't be brilliant in this organization because you're too nice. And he said, being empathetic and understanding won't get you anywhere. And he said, nobody needs Mother Teresa, right? And swore. And I was like, so that was one moment for me that was like a pivotal moment. And I thought, right, so you're telling me that I have to compromise on my values and the way that I want to treat other people, because I don't want to treat people, in a masculine way. I don't want to be masculine to be able to be a leader in this organization. I want to be kind, because he also said to me that I will have to tread on people to get higher up in the business. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that, obviously.
Wow.
So yeah.
That
So that was, and that was a really big moment for me, because I'd always thought that I wanted to work my way up in corporate, and it was really male dominated. So, similar to what you were saying about the mentor groups and things that you've been in. So yeah, it was a tough time, but I learned a lot from it, and it kind of spurred me on, I suppose, to be like, right, okay, I want to start my own business where I will never treat anybody like that or make anyone feel like that.
I think it's really inspiring, actually, that you were able to tap into your values, because imagine if you'd have continued on that trajectory, it would have only been a matter of time until that misalignment would have started to play out in, maybe you would go into more kind of like dopamine seeking activities, because you're not fulfilled truly in what you're doing, and you're actually chasing status rather than what is right for you in regards to your values and living a life where you are truly fulfilled. So what we talk about here a lot on the Ladies Best Life podcast is living a life of freedom and fulfillment. So I can imagine some people who are listening to this today probably in a similar position where you were. So how did you go about gaining that freedom and that fulfillment? Like, how did you get off that really kind of like brutal, fast-paced ladder to then be in a business now where it is all about your values?
Yeah, so I suppose it started with a trip to Bali. Honestly, so this was 8 years ago. And when I came here, it was a holiday, it was a 2-week holiday. And I just loved how people live. I love the culture. I love the community. I love the fact that everything is so stripped back and everybody is so happy. People here don't have a huge amount when we talk materials and things like that. But the wealth that they have comes from the community, the relationships, relationships. You know, the sun is shining every day, everybody looks after each other, everybody's so kind. And I loved that. And that's what made me really realize that actually success, I was viewing that as a materialistic thing. And that wasn't what I wanted. Success was, to me, just being happy, which I know that sounds so basic, but I think it can be quite hard to feel really kind of truly happy. So yeah, that's where it started. Started in Bali, and I've forgotten what you asked me. I kind of gone off on a tangent there.
Love it. And do you know what? That's going to be a really valuable lesson for a lot of people to hear, is that, and this is something, so a little task we do inside the coaching club is to define our rich life. So when we're 87 years old, is the example we did a couple of weeks ago. When you're 87 years old and you're in your rocking chair, if you were to kind of like come back and give your current self some wisdom, what sort of life will you have had to have lived by the time you get there? What would she say to you? So the fact that you're like, you know, monetary sort of materialistic stuff probably won't matter, but connections, relationships, and therefore happiness is key. So the question I asked is, how did you make that transition across from being in this, like, it's like a tunnel, isn't it? You're in a tunnel, you're like, right, success, status, you know, I'm going to climb the ladder. When you're on that path, it's fucking hard to get off it. So how did you go from there to the kind of step over? So I assume it all started in Bali.
Yeah, it started in Bali. And then, so I knew that this life, you know, the life I was living wasn't fulfilling me, but I hadn't kind of connected all the dots yet. So went back home, went back to my job, and then it was my health. So when I started to get these migraines and I started to feel really unwell, actually, I didn't even put that together with the fact that it was being caused by work. I don't know why I just didn't. And because I thought that I was doing what I wanted to do. So it just went completely unnoticed. I couldn't put the link together, but I knew that I felt unwell and I was being prescribed all of these really strong tablets from the doctors and nobody understood what was going on with me. All the while I was trying to actually push through at work. So when it suddenly clicked that actually this is stress, it's stress and it's me being in an environment that isn't right for me, it doesn't align with my values, I then started to realize that I wasn't going to be able to live the life that I wanted to live, doing that role and within that particular place as well. So yeah, so after that, I had a few other jobs. I tried kind of different industries. I experimented, I suppose, in that way. And then I had another situation that happened similar to the first one, that just really pushed me over the edge there. And I was like, okay, well, this is it for me. I'm going to have to take the risk now because I can't keep complaining about, you know, not wanting this life, being on this treadmill, doing this kind of 9 to 5, not having that freedom, feeling like I don't have time to look after myself, all of these things. I can't keep complaining about this and not do anything. So I just took the risk. I did. I'd saved some money because I kind of had a feeling that this was coming for me because it had been flagged like, you know, 4 or 5 years prior to me actually making the jump. So it did take me a little while to come around to that way of thinking. And I think, you know, you have to be conscious that there are bills to pay and, you know, you've got to be financially stable. It's important to do that. And I think when people share that they just took a huge risk and didn't plan for it, sometimes that works for people. But in all honesty, I did definitely plan that was going to be potentially an outcome for me. So had a bit of money saved up, knew what would kind of float me in the meantime, and I just quit my job with no job. That's what I did. It was terrifying.
How long did it take for you? Like, were you instantly looking for a job, or like how long did it take for you to find a new job?
So I quit my job. And then, so this was not the job that I was in with the guy that, you know, the scenario I just talked through. This was kind of two roles later. And I'm talking after COVID now at this point. So, you know, the world had completely changed. I didn't feel it was the right time for me to start a business during COVID. I know, you know, doing what I wanted to do. So yeah, so this job in particular, I just quit and knew that I wanted to start my own business. And I just thought, I'm just going to take the risk. I'm just going to do it. And that was at the end, sorry, of last year. So I started my business in February, technically, also made the decision to move abroad and work remotely at the same time. So I've kind of had all of that going on this year. So yeah, it's been a lot, but honestly, it was the best decision that I've ever made for myself, without a doubt.
Despite that fear, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it was hard at first. It was really hard. I had so much doubt because when you're used to bringing in a certain amount of money and you've got bills to pay, those bills didn't go away for me. And also, it was around Christmas time. But I'd made that decision for myself. I decided that I couldn't just put it off any longer and make excuses and say, oh, it's Christmas, so I'm going to be buying gifts and it's going to be really busy and I need more money for that. I thought, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I do it now because this is what I want. I want to start my own business. I'm going to go after it. There's never going to be a right time to quit your job. So yeah, I'm just going to crack on and do it. So that's what I did, and then yeah, started my business, and I haven't looked back since.
Wow, I love that. And it's really nice to hear how real you are about it, because people can sometimes sell the dream, like you said earlier, like you did
Yeah,
have a plan, you were kind of like organized, and you knew you had a buffer of X amount of money, because you have to,
yeah,
you know
yeah.
so if we look back at, and this doesn't have to be career, but I just want to know now, like if we zoom out and look at your whole life, what would you say are
Yeah.
like your top 1 to 3 inverted commas successes, like where, and it doesn't need to be
Whoa.
society deemed success, like I want you just to take a moment to reflect and think, what would you say they are?
Oh, that's a really good question. So it's a really good question. I honestly, one is starting my own business. That has been huge, huge for me and really hard, harder than I thought it would be, but also more rewarding than I thought it would be. The other one is moving abroad. I had wanted to do that for so long. When I came to Bali, what was it, kind of 8 years ago or so, on that holiday I talked about, I saw people here working remotely, and I thought, I want that to be me one day. I want to have the freedom to be able to do that. And I didn't make a detailed plan as such to get to that point. It was always in the back of my mind, and then I made it happen.
Mm.
So yeah, so those two things. Oh, a third one. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to give it a little bit more thought, I think.
Definitely do have a think, because
Yeah.
it could be anything, it could be absolutely anything. But even those two things, so starting your own business, moving abroad, both of those
Mm.
are quite against the grain. They're not
Yeah.
really, a lot of people would prefer the safety and security of being inside a business where they're getting paid every month. They don't have to worry about bringing in the money. And a
Yeah.
lot of people would feel the fear with moving abroad, despite it really being what they want to do.
Yeah. Do you know what? While we're talking, I've actually thought of my third one. I'm a bit of a reflector, so you'll pick that up on, like, from me. I need to think things through. So the third one is going for counselling and getting counselling, because I feel, well, it was the best thing that I've ever done, and I would recommend it to anybody, whether you're in a difficult place, whether you're not in a difficult place. Sometimes it's great to go when you're in a really good place, actually.
Yeah.
But that for me kick-started a whole new kind of like lease of life. It sounds cheesy, but it really did. So yeah, that's a massive success. And I think a lot of people go through life and they don't ever go and, speak to somebody and talk honestly about their life and, why they are how they are and why their behaviors are what they are and things like that. And they don't learn as much about themselves as they should. And I learned an awful lot about myself, and I've been able to put so much into practice and continually develop myself off the back of counselling. So yeah, that would be my third.
That's incredible. And I am definitely team therapy as well. And it's something that
Yeah.
I've had for years. And, I had it like kind of like on and off when I was going through tricky patches of my life in like my earlier
Mm.
20s. But now it's a staple part of my month. I have a therapy
Yeah.
session every month. I have my therapist also, sounds kind of bad to say it, but on tap. So if I'm struggling,
Yeah.
if I'm having like a bit of a, like if I've got a puzzle that I can't seem to resolve, he's like,
Yeah.
let's have a quick call. I can call you whilst I'm driving. Like, it's really casual and I love it,
Yeah.
because it just gives you the flexibility to move through life at a faster pace, but also without just being like an absolute kind of like bulldozer and going through life. And I think
Yeah.
I've always said this, like, I think if across the world everyone could have therapy, the world would be a better place.
Oh, I completely agree. I agree. And do you know what? I resonate so much with the puzzle thing because obviously, when you start counseling, you might have X number of sessions. There might be certain things that you want to work through. But after you've done it for a long time, then you get into that space where you're like, okay, I've got the tools. I can manage these situations. I know my triggers. I know my patterns. I know what's going to come up for me and I can kind of work through it. But when something comes up or relationships change or when you have big changes in your life, it's so great to be able to just have that call with the counselor and be like, oh, I really need your help. And I do exactly that as well.
I love it. And this is the thing, actually, as you were talking, then it made me realize how a lot of people would have like a finite timeline for their therapy, for their business
Yeah.
coach, for their health and wellness coach. But
Mm.
actually, all of these sorts of kind of like help and guidance and support, I personally think like I don't ever want to be without people in my boardroom. And that's not because I don't
Mm.
trust and back myself, but I always think like there is so much to learn from life, and there are so many challenges and puzzles that will be thrown our way. And I trust myself to be able to resolve them. But I also love to have different people around me to help me to elevate my thinking, to challenge my thinking, to help
Yeah.
me. My favorite thing with my therapist is we had a call not so long ago, actually, and he holds a mirror up to me in such a brutal way. It's brilliantly brutal, but it always like
Yeah.
it's when you have that feeling, you're like, oh God, yeah, how could I not see that? And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. No,
just
I love
brilliant.
that. Yeah.
Okay, so now so we talked about your successes. So starting your own
Yeah.
business, moving abroad, and running a remote business has got to be in there as well. And then obviously going
Yeah.
for therapy. What about your struggles? Like, what is it that Grace Nicholls now struggles with? Like, talk to me about what is it? Is it
Mm.
people pleasing? Is it overworking? Is it self doubt? Like, I'd love to hear.
Yes. So overworking, I am constantly trying to find the balance at the moment. And what I help women with their careers and their lives is find the balance. So I have got an awful lot of tried and tested methods, things that I use, things that I used in my corporate world and things that have worked. But I am in a different area now. Things have changed for me. I'm my own boss. I've done a lot of reflecting on like what kind of boss am I to myself. I think that's something really important to consider as well. And yeah, that's been tough. But I'm very methodical, very logical, very process kind of driven, I suppose. And that's how I try and view this. So I'm always trying different things, different methods to be productive. But then I also have to actively make time for myself to take that time out to relax. And, before we got on the podcast today, we were talking about how I've been a little bit ill recently and I've really got back into the gym and I've been absolutely loving it. And I've had 3 really consistent weeks. I've been so proud of myself. And then this week I've fallen like ill again. And honestly, it's taken me a lot to just not actually push myself to go, even though I feel ill. So yeah, I think one of the battles that I face is taking my foot off the gas and not overworking because I'm so passionate about what I do. I love it. I really enjoy it. I love the people that I work with, but I also need to practice what I preach. So I need to make sure that I am taking that time out for myself. And yeah, I suppose the way I do it is very methodical. I plan it into my week. I use like time blocking, which I always talk about on my socials and stuff, but that's how I try and do it. But it's a work in progress, definitely. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, and then people pleasing. I mean, have got so much better at this since I started therapy. That was one of the first things probably that the therapist kind of identified in me and said, wow, there's a real issue here because I was doing it to the degree that I was just annoyed with everybody
Mm.
in the background. I just resented everybody because my weekends were running around doing stuff for other people, feeling obliged to go to all these events and all these family things, but not actually doing what I needed or prioritizing my needs. And I suppose talking it through, some of that comes out as well in the overworking side of things. Because it's all about making sure that I really prioritize my own needs. So yeah, I would say I've come far, like quite far to be honest, with the people pleasing side, but I still struggle with it. Absolutely.
So interesting. And that resonates with me. And it will also resonate with a lot of people who are listening. What do you think is behind the overworking and the people pleasing?
So I think people pleasing, well, I know in fact it's to do with my childhood. That's what it was to do with, the dynamic, and always wanting to make sure that everybody's kind of okay with me and nobody's upset with me. And just it's not even about wanting everyone to like me. It's not that. It's just wanting to not feel like I've hurt anybody or upset anybody. But what that means is that at times I've compromised how I feel, and it also means that some relationships have really struggled because when I've started to put those boundaries in place, people haven't liked it because they're not used to me telling them how I actually feel and how a situation is impacting me. Because usually I just kind of brush it off and didn't want to impact them, didn't want to upset them. And I'd be thinking more about their needs than my own. So, yeah, that's been quite tough as well because I have seen it change in some of my relationships, but it's always keeping at the forefront that it's so important for me that I have those boundaries and I stick to them. And the people that want to grow with me and the friends that want to grow with me will respect that. And the people that don't, they were in my life for a reason, but they may not be in my life in the future. So yeah, I'd be interested to understand from you as well. How have you kind of managed the people pleasing side?
People pleasing. So, in regards to a friendship standpoint, I'm
Mm,
very aware of a conditional friendship. So, I don't
yeah.
want friendships that are unconditional. And the hard
Mm,
thing is, I believe, is you are almost conditioned from a child to think that you need to have lots of friends. So when you grow
yeah.
up into adulthood and you're like, okay, so I probably only got two people that I can tell my deepest, darkest, dirtiest secrets to, who are not going
Yeah.
to judge me. They don't mind if I cancel last minute. They're like these unconditional friends. I think they're really hard to come by. And so that's how I get around the kind of friendship side of things. From a business standpoint,
Mm,
the one liner that helps me on this is, what's the alternative? So you've
yeah.
got people that want your time and attention at 9 o'clock at night. Well, that means that I'm going to be impacted in my sleep. It's going to mean that I'm going
Mhm.
to miss out on quality time with my partner. Like, look at the whole list. That's the alternative, is what is going to weigh up for you more. And another phrase that we use, which is quite crude, but you kind of sometimes do have to eat shit in business. You do
Yeah.
sometimes have to do the things that you don't want to do. But
Yeah.
is it dropping into people pleaser, or is it because you've got stuff that just needs to get done? Sometimes your personal life
Mm,
does need to take a back seat, and
yeah.
that's okay. That is part of it.
Mm,
And I think it's just being, people respect, right? So it's being clear on this. People respect boundaries, but
yeah.
they don't always outwardly like it. So if you want to be respected as a human, you have to show yourself that respect, and that is in the form of boundaries. And if you
Mm,
aren't being met with someone who's triggered or someone who is, unhappy with that, it's just about communicating it in as fair way as possible and helping them to understand. I in the business, I'm working with a couple of people over in Bali at the minute, and it's me helping to communicate. Like, I have to communicate to them clearly that the mornings are my time,
yeah.
between 6 and 9 a.m. That's my time. So I cannot
Mm,
do calls every time at 6, 7, 8, 9 a.m. because it just
yeah.
doesn't work with my life right now. And that has caused a little bit of friction in certain relationships and certain connections. However, what's the alternative? I completely start my day going straight into stimulus, straight into overload. And you know what
Mhm.
it's like when you're running your own business, unless you've literally planned off. I'm a serial planner too. The rest of the
Yeah.
afternoon, you are just going to keep working because there is always so much to do. But I do
Yeah.
believe this is a constant journey, like we talked about earlier. It's a bit
Mhm.
like a bit hippie and a bit woo, but this people pleasing, this overworking, they are two paradigms that are celebrated by society, but just like a whisper in
Mhm.
your ear. No one's like, well done, Grace, you're working at the cost of yourself, go you. But it's very much like, oh, you
Yeah.
hit this certain month, or you could afford this, or you've impacted this many people's lives. Where do you get those celebrations for, you know, taking the whole week off like you did recently and didn't do a single
Yeah.
amount of work? you have to learn to celebrate that yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? This is a really interesting thing to talk about actually, because this has come up a lot for me recently. And I suppose, when you start your own business, you don't get other people celebrating your successes. You don't have a performance review where your manager sits down with you and tells you that you've done a really good job and you've met this target and you've met that target and it's been really great. And, you're performing really well and you're going to get a pay rise. You are just doing what you're doing and there's endless amounts to do all the time. And you've got certain goals you want to achieve. And it's like, can I get there faster? If I do more work, if I work more hours, I could get there faster. So it's that constant battle. And actually, my mentor gave me some advice recently, which was brilliant. She said to me, what you need is a goal where you are going to see progress. And she said, what I've noticed since I've been working with you is that you've kind of dropped off on the fitness side of things because you've been working a lot and you're in a place like Bali that is so beautiful and you've got so much around you, nirvana,
Yeah.
saunas, steam, ice baths, everything on tap, right? So she said to me, go away and have a think about a goal that you actually want to work towards that is fitness related, because it's something that I love. It's something that makes me feel good and it's an area that I will see some progress. So that's exactly what I've gone away and done. And it's made me feel incredible. And it's just given me that focus because I know that I'm making a lot of progress in my business. I know I'm doing, what I can. And I know that I'm trying to balance my kind of the lifestyle side as well as the business and not overworking and all of those things we just talked about. So yeah, I think having that goal where I can actually physically see a change in me is something that I'm finding really, really helpful at the moment. It's really working. So I would definitely give that advice to anybody that's started their business or, is feeling how I'm feeling right now.
And if you think about it, this is what we cover in Coaching Club a lot. Everything
Mm,
starts and ends with you, whether it be for those who are busy mums and they're rushing around like a blue ass fly, or if it's a business owner who is, health's on the back foot, energy's on the back
mm,
foot. If you are neglecting your only vehicle to be this person, to do these things, which is your body and your health, you can only go so far. And a phrase that
yeah.
we use is focus on the process, not the progress. And it's good to have both,
Mm,
but especially when you've got stuff that's a matter of time, right? So it's a matter of
mhm,
consistency. You've literally just got to do the reps. When it's that, it's very hard to see the progress. So, for
mm,
example, if you're looking at marketing and you're putting out your message, you're speaking your truth, you're emailing, you're posting, you're doing stories, but nothing's coming through yet. That can be like,
yeah.
well, what's the fucking point? And I know a lot of people feel this when it comes to fat loss as well. What's the point? The scales aren't changing. But actually, if we focus on the process, the progress
Mhm,
will take care of itself. And obviously you will need, like you said about earlier, maybe a 4-week review, a monthly meeting with yourself where you're going,
yeah.
okay, because obviously it's the same with fat loss. Like a lot of women come to me and they're like, I train 5 times a week, I am doing XYZ, and I'm like, yeah, but actually they're not the needle moving activities for
Mhm,
specifically fat loss. And it's the same with business. So you could be marketing in a particular way, but it's maybe not the right sort of message that you need to be delivering right now, and that's why you're not able to help more people. And a really interesting
yeah.
point that I thought of when you were saying earlier about, you don't have your performance reviews. Another thing that you
Mm,
don't have when running your own business is you don't have appreciation. And I know that can sometimes be the case when you're in a corporate business. You think, well, why am I doing this? I never get a thank you. But it's the same with running your own business. And that is why you absolutely need to completely back yourself, but also give
yeah.
yourself the celebration, give yourself the reward. Treat yourself to an afternoon at the beach in Bali with your coconut, because those things, like, you have to appreciate you more than anyone else appreciates you. And actually, I don't even think that stops in business. I think that's life wide.
Yeah, definitely. And it is about celebrating the small wins. With
Mm.
my clients, sometimes they laugh because they're like, oh, I can't really celebrate that, can I? I'm like, yes, you can. Like, it's massive. Sorry, there's a fly trying to attack me. It's massive, what people are achieving and what they're achieving is huge. And to them, it feels like a really small thing. But when you're on the outside of it and you can see the amount of progress that somebody's made, it might seem like a small thing, but it's not, because it's complete, it may have completely changed their mindset on something. So
Yeah,
yeah, always celebrate the small things.
it's the compound effect. If you
Mhm.
have that one, so that one like I don't know, like 2 liters of water per day, right? That isn't going to change your life in one day, but it will change your life and probably add years onto your life if we compound it over 20, 30 years. So my next question for you, we're almost done. You can almost breathe. Is if we look at Grace across the board, so mind, body, life, in life, there's relationships, there's business, in mind, there's, you know, freedom of thoughts, there's clarity, in obviously body, it's health, it's performance, it's energy. It's obviously much more than that. But if we look at you as a whole, we zoom out and we go, right, let's take in the last month. One is like you are absolutely on the floor, everything's all over the shop, your health is everywhere, and it's, you know, absolutely crappy. 10 is you've never felt this good, you've never performed this good, you've never been this kind of like level of human before, and it's insanely good. Where do you sit on that scale right now if we go for the last month?
Okay, so on the floor, relationships massively, and business has got to be the top, and health is closely followed behind business, because that is my main focus now. I did a lot of work, as you know, I took a week off because I recognized I've been working a lot, and that's what came out of it after reflecting for that week, was that I really need to start picking up and focusing on my health for the next kind of 3 months towards the end of the year, and then onwards, of course, but with a real focus right now. So yeah, business first, health second, relationships at the bottom. Like I've struggled with moving away and being away from friends and family, and it's kind of come in waves, I suppose. And I think this is the longest, you know, I've been away from home, and I've changed quite a lot. And what I'm doing in my life is completely different. So I've had some challenges with some of my relationships at home because of that. And I think it's worked both ways. And a lot of that has really kind of come to the surface over the last few weeks. So that's been something that I've been kind of trying to navigate and dealing with as well. But yeah.
Okay. And how, because obviously you're coming home in a month for a short amount of time, it's not you're coming home. Like how what's your game plan, if you have one, for coming back into this like basically UK with these these relationships feeling slightly impacted? Like, what's your game plan there?
So I have, again, I'm a planner, right?
Yeah.
So I know what I'm trying to do is keep my boundaries, maintain my boundaries, and not run around all over the country visiting people that won't meet me 50-50 and won't meet me halfway. I'm trying to make sure that I plan to see the people that have really put a lot into me and have been there for me and have supported my growth as I've changed, and vice versa, because they're doing some incredible things with people in my life as well. So I've been there for them for those things. And I'm just trying to not be, not be, what's the word? Not be definite about things. So with some relationships, it's been a bit rough, it's been a bit tricky, and I'm navigating certain situations at the moment. And old me would have been very definite. Oh, this person's done that and they've made me feel like this, and that's it now. I don't want to talk to them anymore. You know, not to that extent, but just to kind of give you a view. And now my view is, okay, well, people are here for a certain time in your life, and that doesn't mean that relationship's not going to continue, but it might look different. And I've been reevaluating what I need from some of these relationships that have been under a bit of strain, and how I can reframe it. You know, if I want that person in my life, then what can I do to kind of reframe how I feel about that relationship to keep them in my life if that's what I want? So that's kind of how I've been prioritizing. And then I've really, again, because it comes back now as well to work, because I'm going to be working when I'm home, not just kind of home and off visiting family. So I've tried to have certain times of the week, this sounds so detailed, but certain times of the week where I know that I'm going to be solely working. There's no negotiation on that. I'm getting my work done. I'm with my clients. I'm doing all the stuff that I need to do so that I feel good and that I'm still on top of it with business. And then certain times that I'm not going to, I'm not going to negotiate on, where I'm going to be spending time with friends and family. And yeah, I've got quite a big itinerary.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can imagine. I bet you were the same.
Do you know what? Like when I was a month from coming back, maybe 3 weeks, that's when the requests to see me started coming in. And I had to, like, my diary was probably social diary was full. Like I'm actually an introvert, which is ironic because I spend a lot of my time speaking to people and delivering, and I love talking to big groups. But actually, like I recharge on my own, and my weeks are friggin' busy. Like they're so busy with work, and I love that. But if I have stuff on Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, I go into the new week feeling completely overwhelmed. So it got to the point where I was like, I have one thing on every week. That's me done. So I had to say no to people. And it is interesting navigating relationships. And I think, I don't know if I spoke to you about it, but when I came to Bali and when I chose to stay and then I shared it on socials, my God, did I get backlash? Did I get people who were like, your life is unattainable, it's okay for you? And it just it really did put things into perspective for me about how why does it matter how we live our own lives? Why does it matter to somebody else? And the most understanding people for me have really stood out in my mind right now. And I haven't been like cutthroat, like those of you who didn't understand my mission, be gone out of my life. Like I don't really operate in absolutes like that. Like you said, the definites. But it does leave you with a little spidey sense towards these people, doesn't it? And a bit of like okay, like this is just one to know. And I love how you're now going, okay, I'm not going to bend over backwards to come and travel to see people. If people aren't going to meet you halfway, Grace, that says a lot, and that says, it also says a lot. Like since I've been home, there's some people I haven't heard of. And I've had, when you're walking along and you have these little conversations with yourself in your head, please tell me I'm not the only psycho who does that. And
no, I do that.
And how, I can almost was thinking to myself, well, you haven't got in touch with so-and-so, but then they haven't got in touch with you. And there's the point where it comes like, if I wanted to see them, if I was like desperate to see them, I would of course be the one who would make the effort. But when you're a bit in that kind of like middle land and a bit of like the maybes, I'm a bit like, well, life's busy. I'm seeing the people who are really topping up my cup. I'm nurturing relationships, whether it be new relationships, like meeting you, what you bring to me, the level of what we've met each other at is very different to maybe some relationships where I've had in the past that was completely conditional to living in Shrewsbury. So I think salute yourself with that, because that's an incredible win to have, to be so kind of mature and to back yourself so much there.
Yeah, and I think it's it sounds like we've had a similar experience. And I think when you start your own business, I know, I see online a lot of people talk about this, and friends and people that disappear, or not just people that disappear, but people that don't like it and are actively mean. I've had that, which has not really sat very well with me, obviously, because I suppose I come from the perspective of I am genuinely happy for achievements of anybody that is in my life. Really behind it. And I've never compared myself either, which might sound, I suppose, a bit strange, because I know there is a lot of comparison that happens, but I guess I've been lucky enough to not ever really have that feeling. And I suppose my perspective has been, if I compare myself and I feel like, oh, okay, I feel a bit jealous or a bit envious, then my head would go to, okay, well, if I want it that much, that I'm going to feel that negative feeling towards another person, well, that's not that person's fault. It's because I'm not doing something for myself. So I'm not fully fulfilling myself. So if I want that enough, I can try and go out there and get that. So yeah, I think, it's definitely been a journey with relationships. And coming home, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit apprehensive about it, because, there's a lot to consider. We talked about it as well. It's very different living out here to being at home. There's a lot of stuff to consider in that sense. It's going to be freezing for one, but I am quite looking forward to that. So yeah, a lot to navigate. But me being a planner, I'm trying to put my plans in place so that I feel like I'm covered. But you can't plan for emotions, right? So I'll have to give you an update on how it all goes.
Definitely do. And also, so my advice for coming home, and obviously I've not been away as long as you, is give yourself space. Give yourself space. Like for me, we got back Tuesday lunchtime. I didn't start work until Thursday. And in fact, that was too soon, because jet lag, we had melatonin on the plane, we did everything that we could, but it still massively wipes you out. And I think if you, obviously we picked up a bit of a bacterial gut infection when we were at Bali. if you've got that as well, that on top of jet lag is bloody hard. So give yourself the space. But yeah, like there is so much to look forward to coming home and to also being away. So as much as you can steer yourself towards that. So one final question from me, and it's a bit of a big one. So you might need like a minute. So, and I don't mind how former we're going. Okay. So
Okay.
one message to your former self, what would it be?
It would be put myself first more and do what I want to do, what I truly feel I want to do. Because I spent a lot of time doing what other people wanted to do. And, you know, I had a few long-term relationships. And now when I look back, I can see that I was trying to support someone else to live their dreams. And all of my things and the things that I wanted were going on the back burner. And I didn't feel any sort of negativity about it at the time because I'd put everything into those relationships. And I felt like that was the right thing to do. But now when I look back on it, I think, okay, I probably did miss some opportunities. I probably could have done some things sooner if I would have been thinking, I was going to say thinking more for myself. I was always thinking for myself, but I was just prioritizing other people and other people's needs. So yeah, absolutely. I would say to myself, put yourself first. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you want to do something different, go for it and just get out there and take the risk. And I know everybody says this, but I wish that I'd have quit my job and taken the risk a lot sooner. But I've done it now, and I'm really glad about where I am right now. But yeah, if I could have done it sooner, I would have.
Love that so much. And I suppose all we can say to why you didn't do it sooner is everything will happen at the exact right moment that it's meant to happen, and you will do what you need to do when you're fully ready. When not even, you won't feel fully ready, but it will be at the point where you are, for some reason, connect to the universe, whatever you want to do, you will do it at the perfect moment that it's meant to be. So whether someone's listening to this who in a sexless relationship for the last 10 years and they're like, oh my God, like I'm just together because we've got the kids. Don't put like you said, nothing will change if nothing changes, and you will probably get the other side of it and be like, shit, I should have left sooner, but you will do it at the moment it's meant to happen. So Grace, honestly, that was incredible, packed full of emotional resilience tools, like life solving hacks, like all these incredible bits of information. So where do people find you? How can they connect with you?
So I'm on Instagram. I am on LinkedIn. I've been loving LinkedIn recently. My website, which is nextlevelbygracenicholls.com. And yeah, those are my main places at the moment. So LinkedIn, I've been really enjoying it on there.
Amazing. That's made me think I really need to get my life sorted and go onto LinkedIn.
It's great. It's a great community.
I love it. Grace, honestly, listen, thank you so much, because that was incredible. And I just know so many people are going to get so much wisdom from that. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you ever so much.